Zero. It's showtime. I'm pretty sure we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, February 13th, 2025, coming at you live from Canoga Park, California at the 2LaneLIVE headquarters. This episode is brought to you by Law Tigers Motorcycle Attorneys. You ever find yourself in a pinch, things don't go the way you planned, give them a shout before you call insurance and they'll take care of you. Today, we got the one and only, I'm running out of breath, Gene BraveRock on the show. Gene is an actor. He's a stuntman. He's spreading culture and all those good stuff. What's going on, boys?
Well, I'm really happy to have this wonderful man on our channel today, and it really backs up to our video from yesterday.
Yep.
Totally. Where we were culturally immersed into the Navajo Nation of the Diné tribe by Don Mose and family, and we learned so much history there. And it's interesting because we're going to get into a dialogue with him about what he's up to, and there's a lot of crossover.
Totally. And the really cool thing is he came across our video with Don doing a little bit of history, and he posted it on his Instagram. But our paths have crossed because he kind of does what we do. I mean, he's an actor, stuntman. He's very busy, but he goes out and talks to elders and shares their stories and try to keep the language alive. And so that we meshed right away, and it's great to have him on the show. But if you haven't seen it, go look at the video we dropped yesterday, because it's truly amazing. We have really immersed ourselves in the core of the Navajo Nation at Monument Valley, and it was great.
Yeah, for those, I'm just going to say, for those of you listening and watching, if you check the video description below, you can hit the link to check out his Oki Language Project, which actually gives some background to all that stuff. It's interesting you say that, because when we were talking to Don, him talking about Rosetta Stone, all that stuff.
I'm excited to get into that. But next week we're dropping the Zion trip, so we're finishing off the Monument Valley trip. Then you'll start to see some stuff where we're on our own bikes. We're heading out with the wives this week to go up to Pinnacles National Monument, which we've never been to. It's not that far from us. We're going to run up to Hollister, California, which is very well known for having its motorcycle rallies on the 4th of July. There's a big backstory there, so we'll give you some history, work our way down to Paso Robles. But the girls are going to be, this is their first ride of the year.
Yes, and they might be wearing their heated gear. We'll see. But if you go back, or this next Wednesday in the video, we have a history piece on Gouldings, and we're going to get a little tour of the museum right there in Monument Valley. So that's going to be worth it.
And the closest drone shot we've ever, the closest to fatality drone shot we've ever gotten. I don't mean fatality in like a bad way, but for the drone's life. So stay tuned. There's some pretty wild shots in that one.
But as part of that, we do have to give Don his props.
Yep.
Because he hung in there on that shot until the last minute. So
he did.
Maybe we should have used Gene for that, for Stuntman.
The Stuntman, yes. Well, thanks to the Mose family for us getting this wonderful thing. They're now family. We have new friends there. So it's, when we go back to Monument Valley, we're going to have a good time again, you know.
That's right. So, well, let's bring him in. How about that?
Let's see. Coming at you live from New Mexico. What's going on, Gene?
Good evening.
How's it going, Gene?
Amazing. I'm glad to be here, back in the land of the enchanted.
Well, it's we've been talking with you, and for those of you that are listening or watching, Gene had to drive a few miles to get a good cell signal and Wi-Fi signal. So we appreciate you putting in the effort to do that, to be on the show, and not only be on the show, but putting effort into go finding a spot where it seems like we're crystal clear. So thank you for that.
Hey, no problem.
So let's talk a little bit about, I've read some stuff on you, and I think it's interesting because we had this whole backstory with Don Mose in Monument Valley a couple weeks ago, and he was talking a little bit about, we'll get into a lot of your history, but I just wanted to touch on this one first. But he was talking a lot about, he was one of the youth that was sent away to boarding school to learn English and immerse him in the culture at the time. And when he came back to the reservation, ironically enough, he was the one put in charge to try to reteach the youth the language, because that had been moving away from everyday language and speaking Navajo every day. And so when I was reading stuff about your project with 365 days, 100 elders, 10 tribes, tell us a bit about that. What quest you've been on and what you've been up to.
Those details haven't been. I mean, it's been more of wherever I'm going, I'm sitting with elders, and they are different tribes. So I was up in Calgary working over the summer, where I was able to sit with some of my own elders, and this project has been ongoing for a long time. Again, it's preserving stories. First and foremost, I feel the reason I'm doing it, again, all of that stuff, but it's for our elders, bringing, acknowledging them, who they are. I was raised by my grandmother, so being around elders and legend keepers and storytellers, and I'm glad that I'm able to still do that. And it's nice to be able to travel and acknowledge and celebrate other tribes, other nations and their languages. So the Oki Language Project, the first word is Oki, and that was my first word in the movie Wonder Woman, when I was introduced to Wonder Woman. So even before that, I've always been sitting with elders and listening, just as a storyteller. As an actor, I feel it's a contemporary way of carrying on that tradition of storytelling. So it's been it was Wonder Woman when I was able to say Oki Nistuni Taniku Napi and introduce myself. And I actually asked an elder, what does Oki mean? Why is it so similar to how you say water in our language? So there's Oki and Ohki. And Ohki translates to that gives life. So when I say Oki, I'm actually wishing you good life. I'm not saying hello. There is no acknowledgement really of a hello in our language. It might even be more disrespectful to be like, hello, and then walk away, right? So for me, keeping that, wanting to, it is hard. And I really commend you guys on speaking with Don and his family, because it is hard to be, how would you say it, accepted into somebody's, you have to show your heart and show who you are for them to share those stories with you. So it's been a great journey. It's turned into from Hollywood to Hollywood. I went from LA to Hollywood, California to Hollywood, Florida, and made my way back. Just the other day, I drove from Kansas City to Santa Fe, trying to beat the storm that's moving in. But I got a chance to speak with Mo Brings Plenty from the series Yellowstone, if you don't know who that is.
Yep.
He's a good friend of mine that we go way back. I doubled him on a television series maybe 15 years ago called Hell on Wheels. So it's as well as elders and storytellers, legend keepers. The purpose of my project, I mean, there's so many different aspects to it, acknowledging the land that we walk on every day. As American citizens, we have that right to live the American dream and to grow, to get educated, to have children, to have a family, to do whatever we want, right? And for me, it's a little more like I want to acknowledge the people whose land that we stand on, wherever I'm at, if I'm in LA or Florida or Santa Fe or wherever that is. And I think the least we could do is learn the language of those people and their greeting. So that's where the Oki Language program or project is getting in, and being, celebrating the greetings is a good way to get in with our elders and start it off. And from there, it's whatever story they want to share. And it's been amazing. I've had, learning different ways to say different words, especially hello. Again, for me, it's so important as a representative of not only the Blackfoot people, but of Indigenous people of Turtle Island. It's nice to go to a community and be able to acknowledge them in their own language. I feel that every, you know, whether you land in LA or Utah or New York, it should have a big banner saying how to say the name of how to greet you in that Indigenous language of the people whose land that you stand on. You know, again, that American dream, it's been, you know, a lot of Indigenous lives were lost, and our languages along with it, and our ways, our stories, our way of life. And so for me, it's just a way of keeping those stories alive, keeping that
Well,
in there.
I love that. And I love what you're saying. And I think we have a crossover, because when we travel the country, we say hi and hello to people in different states and different cities and towns, and we meet them. We break bread with them. We interview them and talk to them. They share their stories. And it's such a great thing. So I think we really relate to what you're doing.
But I also, I agree with that. But if we're not open to learning about each other's cultures, and I mean, this is what really kind of resonated with me and Don, and talking about allowing your mind to open up and listen and hear the history. And we completely forget about 1600 AD and years and years and years before. But it was really interesting for him to tell us how the petroglyphs and how they read them, and how it's really a story of telling people how to travel in these different things. And you'll see a part, if you haven't watched the video yet, there's a part where he's talking to us about the greeting, like you're talking about, hello, and where in the culture, at least he was sharing with us, it's not a hard handshake. It's more of a connection between hearts, and it's an easier handshake, and it's a little bit, at least what he was saying. And so that really made me think about, is you don't have to be like this macho, it's more about, are you connecting spiritually or heart to heart?
Mm-hmm.
And can you understand each other's struggles, pain, and also the glory that each of you have? So it's just interesting that, you know, we did this. Now we've got you on the show, and you're talking about some similar things. And I think helping educate and tell stories, or storytellers, are what we are. And so if we can get people just to understand a little bit more about the culture, and it doesn't have to be motorcycle culture, it can be other cultures. And so tell a little bit about the story, because I read this and saw a piece when you were interviewing for Wonder Woman, because I think there's a lot behind what happened there, and probably stuff you didn't even recognize when you got back home, the impact that you had. So talk a little bit about you were going in for the script read, and then you ended up getting called to across the world to go meet the director. Talk a little bit about that story.
It was a blind audition. I mean, they didn't say that it was for Wonder Woman. It was actually my first ever audition in LA. I read the lines for 2 days on my drive. I was on hiatus from the movie Revenant, and I wasn't expecting to go down there for an audition. It was more of a vacation. And but anyways, I memorized the lines for 2 days, and once I got there, it was the worst audition I've ever done. I forgot my lines, and the casting director asked me to just to read it off the paper. And by that point, I gave up, and I read the lines, and I had to brush it off. I had to get it off my shoulders. I was like, well, whatever. I had my chance to, you know, to take that big swing, but it didn't work. But that's okay. I got to go to Warner Brothers Studios, but yeah, 2 months later or something like that, I got a call to go to. They wanted me in London. I think it was a Wednesday, and they wanted me in London on Friday, and it was they wouldn't tell me what the movie was, and but hey, they were flying me across the world first class, so I couldn't say no. And I showed up in the meeting with the director, the first question was, how do you feel about being called chief? And, I had to take a step back and, we're not all chiefs. It's very stereotypical. And, she understood. I'm very thankful for Patty Jenkins, because she's I honestly feel if it was a male director, it would have went a different way. But she gave me that power to, and understanding that cultural difference or those stereotypes. She asked me, do you speak your language? And I said, yes, I do. She said, why don't you come up with the name in your language and I'll let you introduce yourself. So that's how that came to be. And I did. So in coming up with the name, I researched Native American veterans. And there was so many stories, there's so many, huge, if it wasn't for the war right now, I mean, for the Navajo code talkers, who knows what language we'd be speaking, right? And but there was so many stories, but all the stories I actually found were written by non-Indigenous people about Indigenous people in battle. The only one I found that was written firsthand was from a guy from my tribe. His name was Mike Mountain Horse, who wrote about his what he did and his accomplishments and his he brought back 9 prisoners of war single-handedly. He took out some 70s, acts of bravery where he was in broad daylight running up and sneaking up in broad daylight and taking out the big guns and putting a handprint on them. Like, those kind of stories are amazing. But so I tried to use his name in the show, and I didn't have the right protocol within my own in my own cultural way to acknowledge him. And so it ended up being Napi, who's a Blackfoot demigod. He was so that brought a lot of backstory to my character. It brought if Wonder Woman's dad could be a Greek god, why can't there be a Blackfoot god involved in the story?
There is. And
it did bring a lot of, when I came home, I couldn't say nothing for 2 years of me being in this show. So when it came out, the anticipation was gone already. I was like, I waited 2 years for it. But it was very impactful to the young people and even older people. I've heard so many relatives say that it brought tears to their eyes, seeing or hearing our language on that platform. So again, I'm very thankful for Patty Jenkins for giving me that power to develop that backstory to my character in Wonder Woman. Again, it's led to so many other things of now the Oki Language Project and it is the greetings are powerful, and it does mean a lot more than hello. Like you were saying, it is that connection. On the West Coast and even the Maori, they'll breathe each other's breath and connect their foreheads. It is that give and take. It is that connection that you were talking about. And it's nice very thankful and blessed to be able to do what I'm doing with the Oki Language Project, honoring our elders and leaving something for our children. And another thing that's really important to me too as well is, going to a storyteller, legend keeper, language expert to come forward in a traditional way, bringing protocol. It's not just, hey, tell me all your stories. You know what I mean? There's
right.
And it's nice to show that.
I'd read that
to do that. So
yeah, I'd read that the youth considered you a hero.
That's an honor. It is such a great feeling to go back home and to see little kids, pointing and, oh my God, that's Napi, and so it is good to keep those stories alive. That's how we honor people, right? Is telling stories about them. So it's nice to bring those stories of Napi back to life. And be a part of that. You know, this part of time and storytelling is huge for us as Indigenous people, because that is one of our oldest traditions. And in the beginning, I mean, actually, in the beginning, we were actually the first ones ever filmed, right? But the stereotypes that became involved with the early Western films, we weren't a part of it. Our story was never there. It was, you know, even now there's still, you know, but it's a lot better than it used to be. There's, you know, a lot of the projects do have Indigenous consultation or Indigenous writers, directors, and producers. So it's nice to be a part of that time and a part of that change.
I can't wait till you talk to Don Mose, because he's in education still, and I think you guys are going to hit it off.
No.
So I'm looking forward to the hearing from you guys after. But that's great. You know, and it's so weird. I'm looking at you on the screen here and talking to you and learning about you. And we were just talking the last few days, but I was at my house watching TV and you were right there on screen with a rifle doing some stuff. And I didn't know to move it forward that you'd be sitting here on our studio and we're sharing stories. It's such a trip.
You know what? It's been a great journey being coming where I come from and being where I've been to have that initiative, just to be a storyteller, to have that dream of saying, hey, someday you're going to see me on television riding a horse, you know, and dreaming of being in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. I really do believe in the law of attraction, and I'm proof that dreams are bigger and better than the realities that surround us, because it is been a great journey.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the pride factor, if you will, of Indigenous people. So we were talking about the code talkers with Don as well, and I asked him, like, were they happy? Were they excited to be part of this? And he said, you know, we were the only race in the U.S. that could not join the war. Every other race you could sign up and go into the war, but we could not. And he said, and when we started coming down this pathway of code talkers and what the doors that opened for our people and how proud our people were to serve, because this land originally was their land and part of their culture, and yet they were so disappointed not to be able to serve. But once they were, the pride factor was just overwhelming. I don't know if you have any thoughts or opinions on that.
You know what? My thoughts and opinions on that, I mean, how strong do you have to be to fight next to the people that fought against your people, right?
Yeah,
You're not even considered a citizen at that point. And I know a lot of our Indigenous veterans were not given the same benefits as other veterans, right? It was just they went back to the reservation and then that was it. So yeah, I mean, it is hard to know a lot of our people fought for a country that didn't fight for them, and but all the honor still to them. I mean, like I said, how strong do you have to be to again? I mean, I know a lot of the stories of our veterans and having that last opportunity to fight as a warrior, right? And to fight it, whether you were Canadian or American, to fight with with the people that fought against your people is huge when it comes to really who are we as Americans or Canadians. It's powerful.
Well, it's it. And when we travel, what do we see when we go into these reservations and buy them? They all fly the American flag, and proudly. I'm like going, wow, that's pretty cool.
So speak a little bit more to the Oki Language Project. Sir, you have a website. There's places where people can donate, and tell them what they're donating for.
So the donations are for, again, I come forward with the protocol. I really want, I mean, I haven't been recording that aspect of it. That's more of, for me, maybe even a cultural thing that I'm not going to, how would I say it? I don't know. I just don't want to, but anyways, I come forward with blankets, food, water, gifts, medicine, sage, sweetgrass, cedar, tobacco is very important. Tobacco has been something that even me myself I've come to the point of, I mean, it's huge when it comes to, it's kind of, it's what we put out for blessings or our offerings. And given that question of, or questioning myself about using commercial tobacco has also brought up other questions. And again, having that love, or that, believing in the law of attraction, I now am giving out, I've been receiving and then being able to give elders traditional tobacco from other tribes. Again, it's carrying on that tradition of trade. And, we all, back in the day, we weren't all warring tribes. We traded with each other, whether that was tobacco, different medicines, or different ceremonies. And I've been able to share, tobacco from coast to coast, and not be using commercial tobacco. So I think that's created another almost revival for me, and to promote the growing of traditional tobaccos. I mean, that it's hard from where I come from in Canada. It's hard to get the traditional tobacco because of the farming and invasive species now. You know what I mean? Nothing is what it used to be. We weren't farmers and didn't farm the tobacco as a, we found it in nature as it was, and always left some for only took what we needed. But now that's changed, where it is have to be, it is now, in some places grown or farmed. But yeah, again, the proceeds go to those elements of gifting them the protocols for their stories. And for me, the wisdom that I'm getting is priceless. The more I get, the more I can give them, right? And first and foremost, that's the respect of sitting there and having their time and space. It's been.
So are you allowed to record or film the conversations?
Yes, I've been filming the conversations, the stories. Nothing is on a spiritual level or anything like that. I wouldn't record anything like that, but it's just conversations and stories. And I owe a lot of to my success of knowing who I am and where I come from. So I'd like them to share, who they are and where they come from for generations to come, to have for them to have an idea of who they are and where they come from. 50 years down the road, we're all going to be descendants. Even as it is right now, there's a lot of people that went to those residential schools that have been, I would say, displaced, disconnected, that don't have the opportunities to sit with elders like I do. So it's nice to be able to, I share it on my social. I have over 100 hours of footage that I've probably only released maybe 5 minutes of that, little gems here and there. I mean, but at some point when I do get the time, I'm going to put some more stuff out there and keep doing what I'm doing. This is a project for me that's never going to stop. It's a part of me, right? Honoring our elders and loving it.
That's a good thing.
Well, you've got the platform. I mean, today, just like with us, we started this 5 years ago, and we couldn't really do it without the social media side of it. And so the more youth you can get to, and people can listen to these stories. I've said to my kids, we've talked to Lance's kids about it occasionally, but like even with our grandparents and parents, and have the kids go record their stories, because when they're gone, you know, people used to write journals and do different things, and you don't see that anymore. And so if you can capture that memory, that'll be lasting on like these YouTube videos we're doing. And unless YouTube goes by the wayside, our grandkids, our great grandkids could potentially see what was going on 30 years from now and look at what we're doing, you know? So it's important. Are there stories that, is there one that you could share that resonates with you a little bit more? I know, I'm sure it's like asking us, hey, what's your favorite ride? And it's like, we don't know. But is there one gem that you have?
So many. Let me think off the top of my head. You know what? This story keeps coming back up for me. And it does go to show the power of language. It was the first time I realized, or I didn't realize, I mean, I was listening to an elder at 94 years of experience telling me a story of when she was 9 years old. And it's a story that's now at a place that's a World Heritage Park in Canada called Riding on Stone, a very significant place for the Blackfoot people. And her story brought her into a cave. And in this story, I mean, besides the story, her just telling the story in the language, I could feel the temperature in that cave. It was like, it was a natural virtual reality. It just goes to show how powerful our languages are. You know, there's a lot of things that it's hard to, you can't say in English. And I know that's as well as in European languages. You know, and a lot of this stuff too, I mean, it's been a long journey for me. And the power of language, I didn't really realize till, you know what, it actually clicked when I was living in Paris, France, working for Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, where I learned the impact of languages, where my peers, I mean, I don't know, people that worked at Disney, they all spoke 5 different languages. People of Europe, I mean, they're so close to each other geographically that they got to know all these different languages. And I was like, wow, you know, so it really showed me that power. And that was, you know, being in Europe. So now being here, it's that impact is huge. The power of language and realizing and understanding that every word has a story to it, you know, in a sense, giving it a sacredness. You don't misuse, abuse, or take it for granted. I think that's a big, huge difference in our cultures or in our societies where, yeah, everything was sacred. You know, nowadays in today's society, everything is disposable. Even the words that come out of your mouth or our mouths, as you know, as English people, or, you know, anything in English you take it to a lawyer and they can bend that truth and make it the opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah, that's actually, those are pretty powerful words.
Yeah.
I think we do take things for granted, and I relate it to something like this in the business world. Like, we used to send interoffice mail, and you would type a memo on a typewriter and you'd go put it in the basket. And before the end of the day, if you started thinking about that, and maybe you had written it the wrong way with a tone that was bad, you could go pull it out of the basket and retype it and send it. And we had to do a lot of training for people, etiquette training on emails, when we started using emails in business, because people would just fire things off, and it would just, whether it had caps to it or exclamation points, and people were getting offended on the other side of the screen that were reading it. And I think everything is at a finger's touch today, and we can send stuff so easily, and just like, what did we just, that was so dumb of me. Why did I do that? You know? And I think it's important for people to take a step back and realize and think about what you're saying to people, and think about how you're presenting yourself to people. So what was the question someone wanted to ask him?
Let's see.
About tobacco.
What about tobacco?
He was asking, can you ask him if tobacco is a good, I'm guessing he meant to say gift to bring if it's not commercial. Also, what other gifts and offerings are good to bring? I guess it depends on the scenario, but.
Yeah, they're asking if they've brought tobacco maybe to the reservation as a gift, I'm assuming, that as long as it was not commercial, but you can speak to that. But I think one of the other things I'll just speak to is you can go to his website and donate, and then he'll do the offerings for you on your behalf.
Yes.
But I don't know, Gene, if you want to.
So the gifts that I'm giving, I'm usually, I'll purchase off other Indigenous artists or elders even, pottery, earrings, different kinds of jewelry, baskets. A lot here in New Mexico. There, I mean, all over in Indigenous or Indian country, there's basket making, blankets, again, food, water, medicines, sweetgrass. Different places have different medicines. I mean, down here in New Mexico, they'll use cedar as a smudge, as where we use sweetgrass. So the tobacco, I mean, again, it is common now for people to gift commercial tobacco because there isn't really an option. I've been given, I've had that opportunity, but because of my travels and because I bring up that question. And for me, before this year, I've never even seen a natural tobacco plant. So now,
and out of curiosity, what are the main differences aside from, you know, all the chemicals that they use in commercial tobacco? What are the main differences between the two?
You know what? That's a big, huge thing to I mean, I don't know, to be honest, because they're all different types.
Yep. Gotcha.
Some of it, like the one in California, is their long brown leaves almost look like a cigar rolling tobacco. And the one from here in New Mexico, it's green and really fine. It almost looks like weed. But the thing about traditional tobacco is it was never there as an addiction thing. It's not there. It wasn't an inhalation thing. You didn't inhale to get addicted. It's a bridge for your prayers to go up. Or we all have our own different cultural values when it comes to the use of tobacco, but it was never a thing about addiction.
Oh, it was a ceremonial thing.
Yeah, this is all ceremonial. It was never something to, I need to smoke a pack of cigarettes today. Right? It wasn't that. So that's something, I guess, another stereotype of our cultures, right? And another big thing too about what I'm doing, and before I go any further, is, you know, you say Native American. I mean, I think the majority of people think of teepees and buffalo, but the reality is each and every one of our nations is different, and we all had our own different ways, different languages, and different values, right? We don't all live in teepees, and we didn't all hunt buffalo, right?
Well, I was going to ask you that question too, because you're going around to different tribes. You're Blackfoot. How are you setting these meetings up? And is it we're in an age today where the tribes are there's no animosity. You're being welcomed with open arms.
You know what? My interactions with the community have all been very organic. I haven't really, I'll call friends or people that I know from certain tribes when I'm going through there, and that's how those connections are being made. People's, you know, I'm going to sit with Pat Vegas as soon as I get back to California. I don't know if you know who that is. Do you remember the band Redbone?
Oh yeah.
The song "Come and Get Your Love." So I'm gonna go sit with him. I've already sat with him, but I didn't record anything. I do want to sit with him and put some stuff down. But all the meetings have been very organic, and being in the business that I am, I can pretty much reach out in any community and get an elder or legend keeper or language expert. I just sat with somebody in Oklahoma City that was a professor at Oklahoma University for language, right? So it's yeah, that's
So the Redbone is that the lead singer you're going to sit down with?
yes, he was it was him and his brother Lolly, right?
Wow.
I met him a couple years ago doing a video for Taboo from Black Eyed Peas, and his story was amazing. How Jimi Hendrix, spoke to him about adding, some, there was so many different conversations that he had with Cher and all these big names in the industry back in the day, right? So I look forward to going back and sitting with him and recording some more stuff. But it's
very cool.
So
again,
as you're traveling reservation to reservation or around the country, are you seeing, is there youth coming up, and when you talk about legend keepers and language experts and elders, what are you seeing that being passed down now a bit better?
you know what it is? It gives me a lot of hope going into communities and seeing the traditional land teachings that is happening in some of our communities. But the reality is it's also not happening in a lot of communities as well. Different communities, different places, they're all different. Whether, there's so many different aspects. We all had different treaties that have affected us different ways, even though the majority of those treaties were never honored. When it comes to the, the here in the States, the casinos that are involved. I mean, people think, again, another stereotype is that we all get casino money, and that's not the reality. There's only certain tribes that do. And again, there's just different realities in different places. So,
well, and talk a little, you're driving around the country in a Silverado and an Airstream trailer.
Yes, you know what? Yeah, I'm very thankful for the collaboration with Airstream. So when I first started doing this, I was going to elders' homes. So I realized that it turned into a big thing for them where they would prepare for me to come, and they put a meal, and it was, I felt I didn't want them to go through all that. So when they come in, visit me, I sit down, and usually I make my own jerky. So I'm feeding them. We sit down, we have a coffee where they don't have to do anything. They just sit down.
Right.
That's it. So again, the Airstream's given me that. It's that vessel of being able to retain that language. And again, to travel the land and acknowledge everywhere that I'm going, that every step that I take, there's a story to be told. And I feel, not that it's my duty to tell that Indigenous story, but whether if I'm driving through Nevada, I drove through there with my son, and I'm thinking, okay, whose traditional land it's, or, I did that in Lake Tahoe, and there's not a lot of, hey, you're in the land of the Miwok, or hey, you're in the land of the Paiute. But to realize and understand how strong and resilient our Indigenous people are to survive in these places is amazing. And to know that, the desert is thriving with life. They just need to know how to look for it. Right. And so again, it's been that vessel of me traveling, acknowledging every step of America, that there's an Indigenous story to be told.
Well, it's great to hear that you're doing that, because again, like I was talking about the stories with grandparents and great grandparents, to be able to, and just the 8 hours we spent with the Mose family enlightened us so much. And for you, I bet it's really cool because you're seeing all over the country different tribes, and you're hearing these incredible stories about maybe how they traveled and how they got there or when they got there, and you're absorbing all the history in. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I mean, going through past Oklahoma and hearing the stories of, everybody east of Oklahoma was pushed to Oklahoma. But even going into Tennessee, there's a lot of places that have been preserved and acknowledged. Hey, this was the traditional land of the Cherokee, of the Choctaw, of the Shoshone, and there, some places it is documented and the stories are being protected or the land's being protected, but that's not the same everywhere. I was just surprised to see it in Tennessee, and it was amazing. I was like, wow, it was a great experience to be the history that's been preserved there. I mean, like even up to the Civil War, Indigenous people fought on both sides, or some of the same tribes fought on both sides, right?
Brothers fought on two different sides. The whole thing.
To see the mounds that were made, in the between 500 and 1000 AD. I mean, that takes away the whole Bering Strait theory is out the window with that, right? I mean, it does a lot to the history that's being taught. But anyways, it is a very, to understand the Seminoles were actually up in Georgia area and brought down to Florida and, hiding out. It was all about survival, right? And to hear the stories of Seminoles, literally hiding under the lily pads with crocodiles beside them and the army going through trying to kill them all or relocate.
Let's see. Oh, he's gone.
Oh,
wow.
Can you come back?
Well, we'll wait a minute and see if he's coming on, but it's just so wild how this is intertwining from
totally
what we've done just off the drop.
Yeah.
It's another one of those fate things.
Yeah.
And a lot of the history, just like he said, there's a difference between the history that happened and the history that is being taught in a lot of different respects, whether it's where people came from, how they got there, or in our case, what the United States wants to teach students, if you will. It looks like he's trying to get back on here, so let's give him some time.
Well, you look at, not only you think about man is cruel.
Oh yeah, human nature is
cruel, and you think about some of these boarding schools and
he's back.
There he is.
You're back.
I don't know how long I was talking to myself there.
No, you were all the way to like the Seminole down in the lily pads with the crocodiles and the army
trying to get them and
and he's back. You're back.
Back again.
Can you hear us?
Are we back? Sorry.
Yes,
we're good.
We are back. Can you hear us? Hello?
I wonder if the rec center shut their power off.
No.
Technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yep,
we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Maybe not.
No.
We can hear you.
There we go.
You're good?
There we go.
Cool. So we do these live, and we do run into problems sometimes like this, but we want them live, the conversations live, so that you can't see here, but there's so many people commenting, and they're talking with each other, and Josh is throwing up comments so you can see them on the screen. We could easily do these and produce them and not have glitches and that, but
wouldn't be as fun.
Not the same. So thanks for bearing with us all.
So I watched the whole series of you on Dark Winds, and you're in Monument Valley, and I'm looking at it going, we've been to all over this place. So there you are, Blackfoot in Monument Valley, and you're an Indian in Monument Valley. How's that feel? Was it interesting, cool? Did you have a good time doing it?
I felt like the tallest Navajo. I'm 6'4", right? So I'm a lot taller, but you know what? That's the series when the Monument Valley scenes, those were all B camera shots. We didn't actually get to go there. We were scheduled to go there, but I don't know if you remember, there was a big, huge, we went on strike. And that was right at that point. It was like $1 million move to move there and to have us go on strike. So we didn't actually go. But we were here in New Mexico, right around the studios around Santa Fe. Camel Rock Studios.
Gotcha. And your friend has a movie ranch in Santa Fe. And I just learned yesterday that your friend actually made the belt buckles that we wear.
What a small world.
Isn't that weird? It's like Jochen said, hey, all those gifts that you guys got, the buckles, there was 30 or 40 of them made for all the riders that were there. And your friend made them, handmade.
Yes, he's a great guy.
And they're incredible.
I actually met Clint in Paris.
Really?
2008 when I was part of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. So I'm very excited for him buying the ranch, and a lot to see, a lot of stuff happening in here in New Mexico. So
I heard you just say you're 6'4".
Yes.
You're tall. Wow.
That's why I said I was the tallest Navajo in Monument Valley. How I feel.
Yeah, well, so think about your professional life. When you think about it, what are you most proud of? And it could be what you're doing now but what have you, but what do you think professionally you're most proud of? And then I'm going to ask you the same question on the personal side.
You know what? I'm really proud that I'm at a point right now where I can say yes or no, where I can pick and choose, because there was a time where it was like, hey, I have to do this.
Right.
You know, nowadays I'm at a level of saying, hey, I'm not going to do it this way, or I'll do it this way. You know, for me, it's always a cultural aspect, right? When it comes to stereotypes or trying to clear up those stereotypes. You know, even when it comes to, you know, I just did abandons up in Calgary over the summer, and it was like, here, come here, I need to dirty up your teeth. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, we brushed our teeth. We taught the European, we taught the traders how to brush their teeth. We didn't have an issue with dirty, So, I'm just, when it comes to the cultural stuff on set, there was a day where, if I said something, it was like, hey, there's 100 other Indians that'll do this. Do you want to work? Right. So right. Now, point where, it is important for me, whether it comes down to language or different culture. I don't want somebody else coming up and representing a Blackfoot wearing something that doesn't relate to Blackfoot people, or you know what I mean. I just do want to do it right. I mean, it's the same thing going into a period piece where that saddle is out of date, or it's a new saddle. People notice that kind of stuff,
right?
So that's the same.
You want it to be authentic.
Yeah.
And personally,
that's what I'm happy that I'm able to do now is have a little more power when it comes to those decisions.
How about on the personal side?
On a personal side, again, I'm thankful that I'm able to carry on the tradition of storytelling as an actor, and also be also to show that dreams can come true. From where I came from to where I'm at now, I didn't have to lose traditional values to succeed. Having long hair, knowing my language, riding horses, that's what's taken me around the world. And that's what's made me who I am as a storyteller, and I'm able to live my life and do what I want, and work for myself. Work for, and it isn't even working. For me, it's learning, right? And being able to retain and share some of the stuff that I'm learning. So very blessed and very thankful.
Someone just asked if you ride a motorcycle, I'm guessing.
You know what? I was have a buddy that's on the show Mayans. He was like, dude, you better get your license. I'm gonna get you on Mayans. I never did get that opportunity, but I did go and do the lessons to get a bike. I will be picking up a bike here maybe just before summer here. I'm looking at a Springfield Indian.
Awesome. We had 4 Mayans on our show in the last few months.
Was one of those Raul?
We had JD Pardo,
No.
Amelia Rivera, Michael Irby,
Frankie.
and Frankie Loyal.
But oddly enough, you say that. We've done some work. We met some really beautiful people. Actually, the person we met was Lorna up in New Mexico when we were doing this ride for Harley. And she's with Medicine Wheel Ride and the group that is doing all of the fundraising to find and help stop human trafficking on the reservations, domestic abuse. We actually, became friends with her. We just did an open house in December and we raised $3,000 roughly to give back to them as part of a donation. And they had people come here and flew out. She flew out from South Dakota. We had Lisa, one of our good friends that flew out from Maui. And Lisa reached out the other day and said, hey, I see you have Emilio on. I've got a couple of my friends and Raul was one of them. So I'm hoping that if you know him, maybe poke him a little and say, hey, these guys at 2Lane, you should do it. But yeah, we're going to try to get him and Coco on and see if we can, get every Mayan we can on the show.
Hey, cool. Right on. Yeah, I'll let him know.
We had one really cool magic moment a year ago or 2 years ago. We were riding our Harleys down Route 66 in Arizona, northern Arizona. And the guy was on a horse, very colorful, and he was riding, and it was cloudy, and he was alone, and we were the only ones on the highway. And he just was on the horse, and all of a sudden he just went right at us, and we waved, and it was like our wives were just like, oh my God, that was the coolest. Really cool.
So what he's saying is when you get that Indian, you got to come ride with us.
Yes.
I look forward to it. Right on. Yes.
Well, we're bumping the hour, so I know you drove and got down to get the cell service up and running. And if maybe you want to put up his website again and where they can donate before we sign off here. And we have really generous followers, and a lot of times you'll see some donations coming through just because they're hearing your story. And if you can take on these traditions and gifts to keep the ceremonies as true to their core as they can be, our folks that follow us will try to help with that.
Hey, I appreciate you having me and being able to share my journey, my project with you. And I look forward to riding with you guys.
Well, we want to get you live in studio because it's always better to feel the emotion. So one day we're going to have you in the studio. And now, as with anyone that we hang out with, your family. So you're stuck with us and we're stuck with you.
Hey, maybe I'll see you in about a month in LA.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Come over, we'll break some bread and get to know each other even better. But we appreciate the time and energy that you put into getting there today. We're going to close the show. Stay with us just 1 second and we'll come right back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, another great guest. Gene has got just a great story.
We've been talking for a few days. He's a good guy and he's got some stories to tell, and so do we. And I'm glad we did it.
But I think, he's got to be feeling probably 10 times what we feel because he's hearing it more and more than we did. We just got that one beautiful experience with Don. But we've had many other experiences in storytelling. It's just kind of cool to hear his story and how he's trying to gather the elders' conversations and present them. So pretty cool.
So go back and watch the video that dropped yesterday. We met Don in the middle of nowhere, which
It
is
was
somewhere.
8 degrees. It was freezing.
And he walked up to us and said hi. And then we were able
Yeah.
to go to Monument Valley. And same thing with Gene. He saw the video of Don Jr. and contacted it. And this circle just keeps spinning.
Yeah. So we'll have 805 up on the wall in a couple of weeks. Thanks. We appreciate that. But look, yeah, go look at the video drops. We got a great one coming up. But hey, 2LaneLIVE.com is where the magic happens. We'd love to help you out with any motorcycle parts that you have. Hit the bell, subscribe
To the YouTube channel, tell your friends, and we'll see you guys down the road.
Down the road.